out of my face. Seriously?
Robert! You ain't the homie, this ain't for you. Ain't chasing paper, this ain't for you. You know what we came to do. Hey, you know what we came to do. Look, I'm in a league of my own. Y'all need to leave it alone. I'ma just eat everything. I'ma just leave you the bones. Call it an even exchange. There ain't no need to explain. Yeah, it should be overstood. Like when I hop on a plane and I fly over your hood. Y'all should be knocking on wood. Don't make me go against the grain. I ate my Wheaties, I'm good.
Freaking swag. And you earned it. Nobody gave it to you. You earned that Samagon. I'm proud of you. But listen to me. So next week, we got to settle what we do again. You got to do it again. This is how we stack wins, man. But we got to understand what the process is. It's the work. It's finding out what we did on Sunday. It's off on Monday, but all of a sudden studying the opponent. And it's the work on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. More work on Friday and play the game on Saturday. So that's what we got to get ready for. Last time we went there in Dallas, it wasn't fun. It wasn't fun. Okay? So we got some work to do. Everybody got it? Yes, sir. It's personal. It's personal. It's personal. It's personal. It's personal. It's personal. I believe. I believe. I believe. I believe. I believe. I believe. We're gonna dominate. 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 We're gonna dominate the SWAC West. You watch.
What's the deal? It's your boy Kelly Flicks. And look, do you believe? Do you believe? Coach Hugh Jackson definitely took some from his homeboy, Coach Prime, bringing I believe to Jackson State. Now, Coach Hugh Jackson was talking about stacking wins, stacking wins, stacking wins. Well, they just got their first conference win this past weekend versus Texas Southern. And we'll talk about it, man. But there's plenty of things to talk about today. Welcome back to the show. It's your boy, and this is another episode of HBCU Flicks. Let's get into it. We got so much stuff to talk about. So, Jackson State and their struggles versus Bethune-Cookman. Right? Jackson State only beats Bethune-Cookman 22-16. And guess what? The quarterback only throws for 90 yards. So, Jason Brown, I got some questions, and we would like to bring you to the stand right now, right? All right. Also, we got the Week 5 injury report. It's going to be a big injury report because partly we never see any HBCU injury reports. So, I've compiled all the players I know that are injured or day-to-day or questionable or out, and I've put them all on a list. We'll all talk about it later on in the show. Then we got Grambling. Is Grambling back, right? That's what I was talking about with the I believe. Do you believe? I don't know. Do you believe? Can you win a SWAC? Questions. But one thing that is for certain is that Grambling State has the best HBCU offense in football. They're currently ranked 29 of all FCS football teams. They had offense, but will the defense show up? So before we get into the show and everything that we got to talk about, we'll talk about Did You Know? Shout out to my boy at HBCU FC, and let's get into some more Do You Know? So my boy David Wright did it again. He's leading passing yards again. 370 passing yards from the big quarterback down at Allen University. Another quarterback that I spoke about last week was Walker Harris. He's a backup quarterback to Davius Richard at North Carolina Central. Last week, I told you guys that I don't think Davius Richard is going to play. I thought it was over a 50% chance he doesn't. So he doesn't play, but Walker Harris comes in and throws 5 touchdowns, the most touchdowns of any quarterback in HBCU football this weekend. So another big game for another good quarterback. Quincy Casey out of Alabama A&M threw for 81% completion percentage versus UAPB last Thursday. And we actually had that on the watch party, so we'll talk about that. And then rushing yards wise, we got to see Irv Mulligan rush for 174 yards. And his counterpart at Grambling State actually ran for 174 yards too. And that's Chance Williams, otherwise known as Lamborghini Williams. Lambo went crazy this weekend. Then receiving yards wise, Johnny Jones out of Edward Waters University caught for 138 yards this past weekend. Big shout outs to the kid. He went crazy as Edward Waters routed Morehouse. Then lastly, Miles College. So Miles is a little bit more interesting than the rest of these teams. They led HBC football in team yards this past weekend with 600. And it's almost like I should have called this or saw this coming because the past 2 weeks, Miles has played against Division I opponents and won one game, lost the other one on the last drive of the game. So knowing that and seeing them come into SIAC play, balling and dominating, I cannot wait to see Miles versus Benedict this year. It's going to be a great game. So as I spoke about, we did get to see Chance Williams run for 174. We did get to see Quincy Casey go crazy. Because if you were at our watch party, you got to see everything. You got to see me react to all types of plays. You got to see my boy EJ get up in here, former Lincoln quarterback, come here and talk about some quarterback play and different things going on with Grambling, Texas Southern. And quite honestly, the watch parties every week, you got to make sure you tune in. So recap, Alabama A&M versus UAPB. This is the thing. I think Connell Maynard is on the hot seat. I think he's on the hot seat. He really mismanaged the game this past weekend against UAPB. Right, and it wasn't even a weekend, it was a damn Thursday. That was before all the games started. We saw, and if you watch the stat sheet, look at the box score, you will see that Alabama A&M dominated this game offensively. Literally, you got Quincy Casey throwing for 320 yards at quarterback. Your running back ran for more yards than the other team's running backs combined. Donovan Eaglin ran for plus 120 yards this past weekend. We saw an A&M team that had the talent to do this, right? Had the talent to win this game. But they're playing against a UAPB team that's actually very grimy, very sticky, a team that plays with a lot of effort. And I think at the end of the game, they were actually run down because they don't have that depth in the trenches, defensive line and offensive line. They don't have that. And I think Alabama A&M weared on them, and won the game. But here's my problems, though, right, with Connell Maynard. Coach Connell Maynard mismanaged this game greatly. At the end of the first half, right, there was a point for Alabama A&M to kick the ball, punt the ball, right, back to UAPB. It was a 4th down. They had the ball on their own 30-yard line. Well, instead of punting the ball, Alabama A&M elects to fake the punt, send the ball to the up back, and they get stopped for a tackle for loss. They turn the ball over. UAPB takes the lead before halftime, 17-10. Like, you're literally giving away momentum by running bad plays like that. Why would you fake a punt on your own 30 with 16 seconds left in the first half? In a tie ball game. It doesn't make sense. It just doesn't. It doesn't. Other issues I had with Coach Connell Maynard as far as managing this game was really to the tune of the things that he could not do, right? And I think that it's almost like Coach Connell Maynard's playing like he's an underdog in a situation, and we saw an A&M team, honestly, play down to their competition. They play down to UAPB. UAPB is not as talented as Alabama A&M. They don't have a Zarian Hayes. They don't have a Marquise Beason. They don't have a Quincy Casey, a Donovan Eaglin. They don't have Terrell Gardner. They don't have these type of pieces, that type of talent out there. But what they do have is guys that buy into this program and a coach that honestly understands his players, right? I saw a UAPB team that came out and had some little bit of umph to them, right? They came out with a lot of energy. And when you come out with a lot of energy, you have to be, as an opposing team playing this team with energy, you have to be a team that's disciplined. Have to be a team that understands the philosophies of the offense and the defense. And lastly, you have to be consistent, right? So we saw some consistencies out of Alabama A&M, but I think philosophy-wise is where we got some issues with A&M. It doesn't seem like they're playing winning football. They're playing to have fun. Okay, that's cool to have fun, but it does not seem like they're playing to win games. It seems like they're playing to stay around and stay in games. I have not seen this A&M of the past. It doesn't look like the A&M from Akil Glass. It doesn't look like that team. It doesn't look like the outlaw receivers we used to see, and they did well this week. I don't mean to throw any shade towards Terrell Gardner and Keenan Hambrick out there. I don't mean to throw that. But I do want to say that I think Alabama A&M needs a change. I think at the end of the season, you make a change for Maynard. I understand it. I heard about his contract. His contract goes through like 2025. But if you're A&M and you're Dr. Paul Bryant, athletic director at A&M, you got to think, wow, I've set up this football program very nicely to excel and be great. Past couple of years, what type of results have I been getting? This is college football. I mean, maybe in old school college football, you could wait and wait for it to sit and bake. But now it's the microwave age. If your coach is not winning games, he got to go. And this is the second year of this. We have the talent on the roster, but the wins aren't coming. You win this game this past weekend, barely. But I see other teams in the SWAC East improving. Well, I don't see this Alabama A&M team getting better. So another game that we had was Grambling versus Texas Southern. Grambling versus Texas Southern was a very interesting game. You look at this Grambling team, this is the best offense in HBCU football. The best. They went against Texas Southern. I would have hoped that Andrew Body would have played for Texas Southern, but he didn't. But we got to see a Grambling team that dominated offensively, right? Defensively was where they had struggles, and that was mostly in the pass game. Grambling's secondary throughout this season has been picked apart. Usually in man, but a lot of times it's big play situations. These DBs give up some big plays. Big plays. I'm talking about like literally receivers running past DBs, right, to the point to where we're seeing like 30, 40-yard touchdowns. Grambling's defense has to step it up. I've said it week to week. They had to step it up, right? You beat Texas Southern, but Texas Southern had their backup quarterback in. It shouldn't have been close. If we're being real, this is the best offense in HBCU football. You should boat race this team. So I'm happy that Grambling State won. I'm happy for them, right? I'm happy that they got this done. I'm happy that Coach Hugh Jackson is 1-0 in conference play. But I would have liked to see a little bit more out of this defense. I do think they kept Texas Southern in this game. Good job by Jace Wilson over there on the other side at Texas Southern. He really stepped up, and in the second half, he made some very big throws. I think moving forward, he's going to have to take the small stuff, but also be able to extend the field consistently, right? I think there was a lot of times in this game where Grambling State could honestly not fear the deep ball as much at times with Texas Southern, and I think that's why Texas Southern did get by some of these Grambling DBs, because they almost dared Texas Southern to take a shot downfield, right? Quay Davis did a decent job, but there were a couple drops out there by Texas Southern that really hurt this offense and stopped them from winning the game, even when they did have a chance. Moving forward, though, Texas Southern, Jace Wilson isn't bad. He's not a bad quarterback. I think that he has a lot of potential. He can develop into a pretty good quarterback, but he's not Quincy Casey, right? You've built this whole offense around Quincy Casey for so long, and hold on, man. Let me clean my camera off. It's that time. Y'all know that. Where is it? Where's my clean sheets? There we go. Don't worry about nothing. Got it back. But anyway, like I was saying with Jace Wilson. So with Jace Wilson, I think that he can develop into a very good quarterback. But I think that Texas Southern has built this offense so much around Andrew Body. This is a bad time to have to go to your backup, right? When SWAC play starts, this is a bad time to have a backup in there. So Texas Southern, defensively, got to work on stopping the run. The run defense was terrible. You gave up 300 rushing yards, 100 yards between two players. Well, actually 300 almost. Let's put it right. Let's get the math right. About 280 yards of two players. Right, Lamborghini Williams goes absolutely crazy this game. Goes for 175 yards damn near of total offense. And you look at Floyd Chalk back there with 100 yards rushing. So Texas Southern, you got to find out how to stop the run. The SWAC West has a bunch of good running backs. You still got to face Jarvie and Howard. You still got to go face PV. Well, they faced PV already. But you still got to face against a lot of run-balanced offenses, right? Even Southern, the way they get the ball to the running back, you got to watch out for them. So let's move forward. Let's move forward. But don't forget to tune into our watch parties, man. We got another watch party on Thursday. Got to get into that, man. So here we go, Grambling. I was just talking about Graham. So, yeah, Miles Crawley, best quarterback in the SWAC, in my opinion. He goes 14 for 23, 195 yards, 2 touchdowns. He played his part. Made some big throws, stayed accurate, didn't make many mistakes, right? Not turn the ball over is Miles Crawley's game. Takes care of the football. Doesn't throw a lot of interceptions. Doesn't throw a lot of risky footballs, right? He doesn't throw the ball late at times. So with Miles Crawley, that's how you do it. Start off a little slow. I think it was kind of game flow. I was talking to EJ about it during the game. Play calling wise, we didn't see some of the things that we would have liked for Grambling to run during the course of the first half. But in the second half, they really got things going. And I think the first half just set up the second half. A pretty good play call. Pretty good day for the play caller, Coach Holt. I spoke about it. Chance Williams went for 19 carries, 176 yards. Absolutely crazy. Floyd Chalk, 17 carries, 96 yards. Now, is Grambling a run-first team or a pass-first team? I don't know. I think their offense is that good. They can choose a day, right? So I think this past Saturday it was a run game. I think against Hampton it was a pass game, right? This Grambling State offense is that good. You have enough weapons to choose day in and day out. Okay, I think this team will be able to pass the ball very well. We'll leave the ball in Miles Crawley's hand. We'll let him throw the ball 40 times a game this game, right? Last game wasn't the case. Give him the ball, throw it 23 times, manage the offense. Get the ball to Lamborghini Williams. Get the ball to Floyd Chalk. And we saw that versus LSU. So I'm not very surprised this Grambling outing. But do you believe in Grambling State? That's the question. I do. It's kind of hard to do it, but I do, right? I do think Prairie A&M is the leaders in the SWAC West. I think they will probably end up winning it. But this weekend, Prairie A&M and Grambling State play. Yeah. I think we get to see two of some of the best teams in the SWAC West go head-to-head in a matchup in Dallas, right? Last year, Grambling did not do a very good job playing against PV. And PV just came off a big win versus Alcorn. So if you believe in Grambling State, this week is the biggest game of your season. It's the biggest game. In preseason, everybody was talking about Hampton. Well, that was just game 1. This is game 2 in the SWAC. And if you beat PV right here, that means you would have beat Texas Southern. You would have beat Prairie A&M. Lastly, if you could beat Southern in the Bayou Classic, you pretty much have tied up a spot in the SWAC championship, in my opinion. We can go through the schedule and figure out the nitty-gritty of what Grambling State needs to do. But right now, they are positioning themselves to be in the SWAC championship. And it's going to take a win this weekend to get there. But this win against Texas Southern was big. It was very big because some people would have argued that Texas Southern were the true contenders in the SWAC West. They are now set back. They lost to Prairie A&M and they've lost to Grambling. They are set back, and they don't have Andrew Body. So you go on to the next teams, right? You think about Southern. Can Southern do it? I think absolutely not. I don't have any faith in Southern winning the SWAC championship or going to the SWAC championship, right? I think right now we're seeing almost a two-man race. We're getting into a two-man race. I'm not ready to count out Southern yet, but we're getting there. We're getting to Grambling and Prairie being the lone two in the SWAC West. So if you believe, then this is the biggest game of the season right here this weekend. I believe in Grambling. I think they can win this game this weekend. And if they do, I think they're in the driver's seat in the SWAC West. And we're going to see a lot of talk about Graham and SWAC championship contention, which could be very big for the conference. We haven't seen that in quite some time. Shout out to Hugh Jackson, what he's doing over there at Grambling. Let's move on. Jackson State and Jackson State's woes. They have problems. So, look, first off, I'll say this. Their record is 3-2. It's not 2-2. I know how y'all get sometimes about y'all records and about y'all schools. So, look, I get it. My bad. They're 3-2, not 2-2. I did the graphic, of course. So, what didn't change, though, is the fact that they only beat Bethune-Cookman 22-16. Literally by 6 points. And Bethune-Cookman actually almost got a drive at the end of the game if it wasn't for a funky penalty call. Very funky penalty call on a punt. It was some of them SWAC refs being SWAC refs again. So if anything, you could say that Jackson State left them in this game, right? They didn't tie it up at the end. They actually tried to punt but couldn't punt because there was a legal procedure by Bethune-Cookman on the return team. So ended up Jackson State kept the ball for the remaining 1 minute and ran the clock out instead of punting it off like they intended to do. So this was problems. Trouble. Bernie Mac voice. Because, yeah, this team is not more talented than last year's team. People have said that, and people have repeated it. It's not. And we got to call a spade a spade. Any team, any Division I team that doesn't have a starting kicker is in bad shape. Said about Alcorn last year. They didn't have a punter or a kicker. You're in bad shape. I can name 50 Division II teams with a kicker and a punter right now. And a snapper and a holder. There's no reason you come into a football game without a kicker. There's no reason. No reason at all. You have scholarships. You literally have free money allocated for people that can kick the football. To come into a game with no kicker is unacceptable. I'm sorry. You're Jackson State. It's unacceptable. Now, it was pretty dope to see a female kicker in there. Jackson State actually had one of their women's soccer players come in and be the kicker. And prayers up to the other kickers that could not be there. I saw Beza had something going on with his family, and which was the reason why he couldn't kick this week. But, hey, yeah, you're a Division I program. You know the reason why you're so close with Bethune-Cookman right now is because you had to go for 2 after every touchdown? You know the reason why you're so close with Bethune? Because you had to literally pooch kick and kick 15-yard pooch kick, squib kicks every kickoff because you don't have no kicker? This is problems. You got out of this game with a win. It was Jackson State's home opener, which was good. But when you look at this game, it was a nasty game to watch. This is a game that was like 8-6, right, for the majority of the first half. A team where, well, not a team that has a player, right, Jason Brown, quarterback, that underperformed in a game where you honestly are supposed to blow the doors off Bethune-Cookman. Coming off a big loss to Texas State, one thing that a team wants is find a team that they could just beat up on, right? And you think maybe Bethune-Cookman is that team. And if you look on the schedule, you would think that's a nice bounce back game for Jackson State right there. Come off a big loss to Texas State, they put 70 points on you. The next week, you play against one of the worst teams in the SWAC East in Bethune-Cookman, a team that barely beat Savannah State, a D2 team. So you got to think, okay, we're going to bounce back and get a big win. Instead, this. 22-16. Jason Brown goes 13 for 24, 90 yards. It's abysmal. Honestly, this offense was abysmal. Other than the lone bright spot, Irv Mulligan, who rushed for 174 yards, the offense was abysmal. The O-line could not pass block to save their lives. Jason Brown had a very hard time converting on third downs. There was one drop touchdown, and I'll give him credit for that because he put it in the right place. It would have been added 50 yards. But if you add 50 yards to 90 yards, which what he finished with, that's 140 yards. That ain't that good either. It ain't. If you think about Jackson State's game today, the defense actually scored 8 points. They got a safety, and they also had a scoop and score. That's 8 points. You won the game by 6 points. Offense, where you at? So I think Jackson State needs to go back to the drawing board. I think they're about a year away. If we got to be real about Jackson State, talking about contending and things, and they have an easy schedule to end the season, but I think they're about a year away. Easy schedule or not, I thought Bethune-Cookman was going to be a gimme game for Jackson State. It wasn't. We got to call a spade for a spade. This team is what it is, a 3-2 team, a team that barely beat Bethune-Cookman. And Bethune-Cookman actually had their backup in. I think if Luke Sprague played, they actually could have won this game. Like, I guess they could have won this one too. I think they would have won it. I think they would have won it. They would have literally just won the game. Walter Simmons is not a very good quarterback, very inaccurate at times, missed a couple touchdown throws just on overthrows. So, yeah, he's not the guy. I think if Luke Sprague plays this game, we're looking at a whole different ending. So, Jackson State, man, what to take from this? So, when I look at Jackson State, they're 3-2 right now. I think that they can be a playoff team in the FCS. I think they're that competitive, right? But part of them making that run and being there is that I need to see them improve. I got to see the offense improve. You have some weapons at receiver. You're unable to get them the ball. I saw Rico Powers this past week and did a good job on a couple of catches they did have, but he went against an elite cornerback, went against Omari Hill. Omari Hill Robinson is probably one of the best man-to-man cornerbacks in the SWAC. By far. There's not too many other DBs that are close to him. So that was a tough matchup for him. But even in looking at Jackson State's receiving core, Fabian McCray, you got guys like Duke Miller. You still got Seven McGee out there. You still got Hunt out there at tight end. You still got guys, I forgot the starter, DJ Stevens. You have other options, right? Other guys that we saw explode. And I thought this game would be more like a South Carolina State game. And it wasn't because I don't think these options and stuff didn't get the ball. We're looking at 13 completions for 90 yards. Offensively, they're definitely a run-first team. I think that in order to open up the game, they're going to have to open up this pass game somehow. The past 3 games for Jason Brown, you see on the screen here, he hasn't thrown for over 200 yards other than last week's performance, right? Week 1 against South Carolina State, you throw for like 300. I put an asterisk next to that game. South Carolina State's looked terrible since. You haven't returned to form since then. So what I've gathered from Jason Brown is that he has a low ceiling. I think his ceiling is about 250 yards. I think that's about it, right? And he's a true game manager, right? We saw it on the Power 5 level. We saw some at the FCS level previous to this, and now we're seeing it at Jackson State. He's a game manager. He's not your star guy. He's not going to throw for 300 yards a game. He's not that. He is a guy that's going to try to make the right decisions. He's going to go out there and lead block on the reverse and jet sweep sometimes. He's an effort guy, which is good. But that's also why I say that Jackson State is about a year away because they need a quarterback that's going to win them games. I don't think Jason Brown's going to win you games. He's going to do the right thing, but he's not going to win you very many games. I mean, think about guys like Jimmy Garoppolo, some top, like game managers, like literally a game manager, a guy that's going to do the right things, understand the offense, hand the ball off, get the guys in place and run it, but not really a game changer, though. I think Jackson State's about a year from that. I think they got to find another guy. Maybe Jacoby Morgan is that, right? He's injured. Maybe he's that for them. But, yeah, Jason Brown probably won't win you a SWAC championship. Got to keep it real. Probably not going to do that. So that's it. That's all I got for Jackson State. Let's get on to these injuries, man. Injuries. So we get no injury report from the SWAC, from the MEAC, CIAA, SIAC. This is all gathered from different press conferences and the information, inside information that I do know, right? I'm going to give you all my insights. This is what I do know. So this past weekend, Tuskegee, Division II Tuskegee, played a game against Lane College. They went to double overtime, and they barely won. Lane did a pretty good job. My boy Jaquez Jones ate, as usual. He does his thing at wide receiver. But Tuskegee was missing 2 impact players. Bryson Williams at quarterback, who is the guy at quarterback. He's a starter last year and this year. He was out. He's resting up for this next game against Alabama A&M. Another guy that's resting up, Antonio Meeks, the best Division II wide receiver in the nation. And Antonio Meeks is at Tuskegee. He currently leads the SIAC in receiving yards, and he didn't play last week. So he literally gave up a game, let the other receivers get a chance to get some numbers in, and he's still number one. I think that speaks to how good he is as a player. These two guys are going to be back this next week against Alabama A&M. A big Division I versus Division II matchup. I talked about Alabama A&M at the top of the show and Coach Connell Maynor and how I feel like he's on the hot seat. A loss here might just seal the deal for his fate at the end of the season. A loss to Tuskegee might seal the deal for the firing of Coach Connell Maynor at the end of the season. If Bryson Williams and Antonio Meeks are healthy, I think they got it. I really think they got it because here's this, right? Tuskegee is very good at running the ball. They're a smash mouth style team. They don't really spread guys out. They're not trying to go five wide with you. What they're going to do, they're going to be run balanced. They're going to run the ball first and use their run to set up play action pass, right? And on the play action pass, they're going to take shots with Antonio Meeks and a couple other receivers that they do have that are weapons. But mainly, they play in the trenches. So we'll talk about matchups and we'll preview the matchups. Check in with me on SIAC Talk. We'll talk about it more. But I think that Tuskegee, when healthy, can definitely beat Alabama A&M. Alabama A&M keeps teams in it. If you look at the score sheet look at the box score last week, Alabama A&M dominated it, but only won by 7 points. And they actually didn't throw an interception either. Actually only had 2 turnovers at the beginning of the game, but they dominated the whole stat sheet, but still only won by 6 points, 7 points. That's coaching. That's mismanagement. If they mismanage this game coming up against Tuskegee, they're going to lose. They're going to lose. It is what it is. But anyway, moving forward, another Division II player that is hurt, Aeneas Dennis, the quarterback of Benedict College. He's a starting quarterback over there. He has taken the reins from Eric Phoenix. I talked about him last week about what he did and how he looked good. But he left the game early this week. Apparently he has a shoulder injury. And now he's listed as questionable. I think Benedict needs this guy at quarterback. He's a graduate transfer from Shorter College, and he has been the guy that has kept the train on the tracks, right? He's kept the car on the road. He's been the quarterback that has brought everything together. This strong offense, he's brought it all together. I think they need Aeneas Dennis if they're going to take another run at the SIAC championship, but this team is very good. I'm hopeful that Aeneas Dennis' shoulder injury isn't as bad as we think it may be, right? I'm hoping it's nothing that would really would change his throwing motion. So hopefully he can still get out there, but he's questionable now, and I think this week we'll end up understanding what was really wrong. As far as Antonio Meeks and Bryson Williams, Antonio Meeks had an ankle injury, which is why he was out, and I believe Bryson had another shoulder injury. So those guys are day-to-day, but they were kept out last week in preparation for this week, which is kind of funny because last week was a conference game. But here we go. Xavier Langford, quarterback of Alabama A&M. He is a wobbler, right? I know I always talk about the wobblers. He's a wobbler. And here's the thing. He was injured last week. Actually, the week before last, he was injured, right? Last Saturday. 2 Saturdays ago, guys. Follow me. 2 Saturdays ago, he was injured, right? After his game on Saturday, they had a game that next Thursday. He was held out of that game on Thursday. All right, they allowed Quincy Casey to go out there and go play, go start, do your thing. Quincy Casey goes out there and throws for 326 yards, a couple touchdowns. Now, Xavier Langford should be back this week, right? Or should be available this week. The question is, does Alabama A&M make Xavier Langford available and go with Quincy Casey as starting quarterback? Or does Alabama A&M allow Xavier Langford to sit on ice more, continue his rehab even more this week, and say that they are comfortable with starting Quincy Casey this week against Tuskegee? I think the latter is what will happen. I think you rest Xavier Langford in this non-SWAC matchup, allow Quincy Casey to go back out there and see if he can build his confidence or see if this offense actually reacts to him how they did last week. And if they do, he might be the guy at quarterback for Alabama A&M. But I will say this. I think we'll see Quincy Casey again this week. I think Xavier Langford, as he is questionable, he takes another week of rest and then gets back to SWAC play, and maybe we see them go back to switching out quarterbacks every other drive or whatever. But as of now, though, he has a questionable tag, very questionable tag. Then we got Luke Sprague out of Bethune. He is out. He's been called out Before the game against Bethune-Cookman, he was not able to go. They had to start Walter Simmons instead. Throughout the week, it was a question of if Luke Sprague will be able to get a shot out there. And the week came up, and he didn't get a shot. So I think he may have a chance. He may go maybe questionable coming up this week. And that's like an upgrade, right? So the way I see these things, the way I lined it up, day-to-day is a guy that's almost ready to play. Questionable is a guy that is injured but may be able to play through his injury. And then out is a guy that is injured but is unable to play because of his injury. So in out, I think Luke Sprague might be upgraded to questionable this week. We'll see at the SWAC press conference. It's probably going on now while y'all watching this, man. And then Jackson State, every kicker. Y'all missing every kicker, brother. Y'all missing every kicker. Whether it's injury or grades, y'all missing every kicker. That's a problem. Get them guys healthy. Get them on the field. You're not going to be able to play the rest of this season kicking pooch kicks. I guarantee you, the bad special teams play from Jackson State this year is going to come back to haunt them in more ways than not. And look, the thing about special teams, I said it last week, and I spoke about how you can improve special teams and things like that. To be honest, you can improve special teams in 1 week. As long as you got a kicker and you got 60 players, you can improve special teams week to week. You can literally install new special teams plays, coverages, returns, and like that happens every week, right? If you're a special teams coordinator, there's not only a game plan that comes from the offense and the defense. There's a game plan that comes from the special teams coordinator, right? Because as a kick return team, the team you're playing against is going to have a kickoff coverage team that comes out a certain way every week. And you're going to have to find ways to score a touchdown from a kick return perspective. It's not just run down, turn around, and block somebody. No. There's actually a game plan that goes into it. So I think that you should be able to change these things if you're Jackson State. I would fire my special teams coach. I'd fire him. I'd keep honest. I would fire him. They aren't doing a very good job at what they're hired to do. We don't have guys available, which may or may not be his fault, but quite honestly, our kickoff team sucks. Punt team sucks. Punt return. We haven't taken anything back for a touchdown this year. We saw Isaiah Bowden do that year to year with Jackson State the past 2 years, and that's coaching. That's coaching straight up. So just talking about injuries. Every kicker at Jackson State is out right now. Hopefully they find somebody this week to get him out there. And then lastly, man, I want to go through a couple schedules, man, because why not? Why not talk about some schedules? We got a little bit of extra time back here on the back end. So, and speaking about schedules and why I think Jackson State's going to need a kicker, well, coming up, you play against some games that I think will go down to the wire. You play against an Alabama A&M team that I think is equally as talented as you, Jackson State. You're not. I think when Jackson State plays against the SWAC East this year, they're not really going to be out-talenting guys, right? That was a big term last year. They just out-talent the opponent, right, by using their speed and using other intangibles to win games. I think now you could even make the argument that Alabama A&M might be more talented than Jackson State. So coming into this game, if you can't figure out your special teams issues, that might be the big game changer. That might be the momentum swinger. If you can't kick this ball deep on kickoffs and you're still kicking 10-yard, 15-yard pooch kick onside kicks every now and then, it's not going to work. Because I guarantee you Alabama A&M is going to come out this week with a kick return coverage that's able to recover that little pooch kick because, look, it's not a world beater, okay? So kicking-wise, I think that Alabama A&M is going to – I think Alabama A&M has a chance to get a win over Jackson State that they haven't gotten in a couple years, and they're looking forward to it. I think they're probably licking their chops. As much as I say they play down to their competition, they have the talent to win this game, and they playing against a Jackson State team that honestly has kicked their teeth in the past 2 years. Why wouldn't you want to get some get back? So that's going to be a tough one. That one's going to be on October 7th, though. This past one, October 23rd, so they're going to have a week off. They'll be on Jackson State will take a bye and then play against Alabama A&M. So hopefully during this bye, they'll be able to find a kicker, figure out the special teams issue. And then Alabama State. It's going to be at Jackson. Alabama State worries me on Jackson State's schedule now, right? I'm looking at Damon Stewart at Alabama State. He looks very good. Almost threw for 300 yards in his first start. By the time he plays you, he'll have another game or two, actually 2 games under his belt. We'll get to see what Damon Stewart is by the time we get to Jackson, and we'll know then, and I'll be able to give you guys an even better analysis of what I think Alabama State can do to Jackson State with Damon Stewart at quarterback. So then from Alabama State, you scroll down, go down to Mississippi Valley, a team that I think that everybody in the SWAC can beat. They may not win a game this year. Call it what it is. Mississippi Valley may not win a game this year. They look that bad. University of Arkansas Pine Bluff, man. Now, that's a team that reminds you of the Vincent Dancy days. This is a team that's going to play very hard. It's going to give Jackson State some issues for sure just because of how hard they play. And then Texas Southern towards the end of the season, it's going to be really weird. We got to understand what's going on with Andrew Body. I didn't have him on my injury report because I'm unsure of what's going on with him. I think he's day-to-day because they are waiting for some return on some medical documents to see what happened. But I really have a lot of questions on Andrew Body, and I'm not sure. I'm not able to give you guys any injury analysis about it. I don't even know what the injury is. That injury has been kept very under wraps throughout this whole season. Any Texas Southern guys in the chat, man, go ahead. Y'all let me know. Hit my DM. Let me know what's up with Andrew. So Texas Southern is going to be at the end of this season. I think Jackson State could take care of them. But then you got Alcorn here. Alcorn is a team you don't want to face if you're a team that cannot score points because Alcorn is willing to get in the paint with you. Alcorn is willing to run the ball 30 to 40 times a game. And with that, if you let this offense get a lead, you're in trouble. You don't want to play catch-up with them. Jackson State's offense has lagged the past couple weeks, so you got to think that maybe Alcorn gives them a lot of problems at this point in the season. It's going to be the last game in the season. This will be the senior day for these Jackson State seniors, right? Some of the guys that stayed over from Coach Prime and then transfers alike will have their chance. So that's Jackson State's schedule. We have another schedule to take a look at because I did talk about this team a lot. I just mentioned them. And that's Alabama State. Alabama State has now started Damon Stewart at quarterback. This past weekend, they had a tough outing against Florida A&M. They lost 10-23. One of those points was a pick six thrown by Damon Stewart. So when you think about Damon Stewart as a quarterback, he's a guy that can pass way better than Demetrius Davis. He looks much better. I've been calling for his name the whole year. He finally gets his shot. He looks like a decent quarterback out there. My only issue is that Alabama State waited so damn long. If y'all started him from week 1, you might have had a better chance to beat FAMU here in week 4. You want to know why? Well, he would have built some chemistry up to this point, right? Damon Stewart would have went up against Southern. Probably would have won. Look through the schedule. Let's go through the schedule. Week after that, you play Miles. You probably could have beat Miles College if you could throw the ball. Maybe. All right? So when I look at this Alabama State team and how they've now started to go, okay, let's start Damon Stewart now against Florida A&M, the best defense in the SWAC. That's a great idea. That sounds like a ton of planning, right? Sounds like they had this plan written up from the summer. Yeah, let's start them week 1 against SWAC play. No. It sounds like Coach Eddie Robb has his back against the wall, and he's finally made a decision against something that he really likes, which is starting Demetrius Davis. And now he's put Damon Stewart in a place to where it's like a stack or starve situation right here. Either Damon Stewart plays really well because guys don't have a scouting report on him, or he's throwing him out into the fire and you're not sure what you're going to get from him because, honestly, you haven't seen him in very many game time situations. You've thrown him in for a drive or two throughout this season, but we haven't seen him play 4 quarters of football other than this past weekend. And this past weekend, you give him the toughest game of the season. You play the best SWAC school, FAMU. And you play a school, not only as the best SWAC school, a school that hasn't lost a home game in 33 games. Leave all that to the point that you haven't started a game for Alabama State this season. Come on, man. It's like just throwing somebody the keys to a car with no gas. Where I'm going to go? What I'm going to do with this? What I'm going to do with this? Like Smokey on Friday, man. When he said, I'm out to the liquor store, I might get something, and mom says, yeah, give me this. And she gives him $1. What I'm going to do with this? What I'm going to do with this? So, yeah, they're kind of like throwing this mess at Damon Stewart's feet and saying, hey, fix this. I think this week we saw that he couldn't fix it. Playing against a very good FAMU team. But going forward next week, you're going to have another big matchup. You play Alcorn State. You're going to be at home, but Alcorn State has a very good defense. They're going to be up in your face. Very good front seven. That'll be a tough matchup for them. I think they end up losing it. Then you can play Bethune-Cookman. I think you take that game. This Jackson State game right here, man, I have this circled. I have this Jackson State game circled. A very big circle around it. Because I talked to you guys about how I think the SWAC East is weak. Well, I think Damon Stewart actually makes the SWAC East way more competitive than what it used to be. Way more competitive. With D. Davis, you can count that game as a loss. I'll keep it a buck. You can count that as a loss. He's not going to pass the ball for 20 times a game. He's not going to throw for over 150 yards. So you don't got much to worry about. Because we just saw this Alabama State running game this past weekend get stopped and sold up. So you're going to have to pass the ball this season. The run game isn't what it used to be. That being said, Jackson State, oh, man, Damon Stewart versus Jason Brown, I got to see that. It's going to be must-watch TV. Then you got the Magic City Classic. Going to be a toss-up game right there, Alabama A&M. Probably be Coach Maynard coaching for his job again. I think he's a week-to-week guy. Then you got Grambling State later on in the season. That's going to be a very good matchup there. That might be a game with a lot of fireworks. It's going to be at Alabama State. Two premier teams in the SWAC going at it. When you think about facilities, think about uniforms, think about how they look, think about their coaching styles, think about their athletic budgets. Two very big teams going at it. It's going to be at Alabama State. It's going to be a nice cross-divisional matchup. Then you end the season with Mississippi Valley. We know what that is. Prairie View A&M. Going to be a great game, a very good game. So actually a pretty tough Alabama State schedule, man. They have some tough crossover games. Then lastly, you end the game against Tuskegee on a Thursday. And if you're not careful, you might get caught. You know how I feel about Tuskegee, man. So that's our schedule for Alabama State. And then lastly, we'll get into the Grambling State schedule, man. This is the last of their schedule. So I spoke to y'all about it. Prairie View A&M has what I think is the best team in the SWAC West, right? They have capable players. Trayvon Conley, running backs are good. Defensive players are good. They're pretty solid at all positions. I don't really like how their corners sit at 10 yards, but I digress. They're playing against Grambling State this week in the Cotton Bowl. 6 p.m. They're going to be wearing white. It's going to be a very big matchup, right? I believe this is actually called the State Fair Classic when these two go at it. And this is probably going to decide the season for both of these teams. Prairie View A&M and Alcorn last week was a very big game. But seeing as though Prairie View A&M won that game, and they are now in the driver's seat in the SWAC West with 2 wins in the SWAC West, 1 over Texas Southern, 1 over Alcorn State. If they get this win versus Grambling State, they've sold it up. They've got it. Same way I said if Grambling can win this game, they've got it. That's the same way if Prairie View A&M wins this game, they are in the driver's seat. 3-0 in conference play in week 5 is like beautiful. Mwah. That's what we've seen out of Jackson State the past couple of years. Dominance. If PV can do it this year, hey, they got action. But I think Grambling State stands in that way, and I think Grambling State can actually get a win. They haven't won the State Fair Classic. They haven't won a game in the State Fair Classic in quite some time. Maybe this is it. Maybe Lambeau Williams goes off for 150+. Maybe Floyd Chalk goes up for 200. Maybe Miles Crawley decides to throw 5 touchdowns. I think this is going to be a game with a bunch of fireworks. We have 2 very strong offenses that are going to go head-to-head, not only on the statistical stat sheet, but in trying to get this win. I think we'll see big numbers from Trayvon Conley and Miles Crawley. But I think at the end of the game, we are going to see 2 very fierce opponents. Can't wait to see it, man. So then they go to Alcorn State. That'll be another big game for Grambling. If Grambling can beat PV, going to Alcorn State with less pressure, maybe you don't have to do it. But the thing about Alcorn State is Alcorn State's offense is a little bit abysmal. It ain't a little bit. It is. It's abysmal. You're still missing your starting guy, Tyler Macon. Aaron Allen looked pretty decent last week. But, yeah, I think if Grambling can score points, they'll run away from Alcorn. They run away from them. And then you got Alabama A&M. A&M, I think Grambling got A&M. Go to Bethune-Cookman. Pretty confident with Bethune-Cookman. Alabama State, as I said earlier, it's going to be a very good matchup. And then University of Arkansas Pine Bluff. Now, here's a team that I feel that can really line Grambling up, and if Grambling is not careful, because University of Arkansas Pine Bluff plays very hard. They play through the whistle. They're going to play all 4 quarters, even if they're more talented than you or not, right? We saw that versus Miles, and we saw it versus Alabama A&M. Literally, when they were superior in the Miles game, they played all 4 quarters, even with what seemed like a team that was lacking some talent and weren't able to score as much. They still played hard all 4 quarters. They didn't even score in the 4th quarter, right? And they're only up by 1 touchdown, and they still won the game. Like, this team plays through the whistle. If you're Grambling and you're not careful, right, you have some issues on defense and things like that, you might get caught. As a game that worries me on this schedule, but Grambling has a ton of other big games beforehand. I feel like if they can get past those, going to the latter part of the season, don't just look to Southern, right? If you try to look past and look down to Southern, you might be in trouble. Because Southern's going to be a big game for the Bayou Classic, but UAPB a week before could ruin your season. That's a conference game, too. Then you got Southern at the end of the season. It's going to be a great game. Can't call it. I'll probably make predictions when we get there, but that's going to be another good game. Grambling has a loaded schedule full of some great opponents, but it starts this week. You beat Prairie View A&M, and all of a sudden you are now in the driver's seat in the SWAC West. It's going to be a very big game. So, everybody, I appreciate everybody for tapping in with me. Let me make sure I got everything in my notes. As usual, I wasn't able to get into some MEAC stuff this week, y'all. I'll try to. I don't want to even make no promises, but I need to get into some more MEAC stuff. MEAC has played very good against non-conference opponents, man, and seen some very positive things from the MEAC conference. And you're talking about a conference that might be dying. I don't think so. They're still winning games, so they look good. They're thriving. Football-wise. Management and all the paperwork and adding schools and expansion-wise, different question. Totally different question. But football-wise, competition-wise, they look very good out of conference. Very good. I'll talk about some stuff right here real quick. They are 1-1 versus SWAC, 1-0 versus SoCon, and 4-4 versus CAA. We're talking about 6 teams in the MEAC right now that are literally holding it down for the MEAC. Winning games against out-of-conference opponents. They aren't 2-24 like the SWAC, right? They're 6-5 versus out-of-conference FCS teams. So it's just a little bit more promising, and I really want to talk about the MEAC a little bit more coming up throughout this week. We'll see what our game is for Thursday. Maybe I'll do a show before then. But it's your boy Kelly Flicks. It's another episode of HBCU Flicks. Please like and subscribe to this video. I'm out. Peace.